Okay, so welcome everyone to week 7 prayers and meditations by the mother. And today we have two prayers. As we know, February 13, 1914 and February 14, 1914. So let us start with this first one. And whoever feels ready to share, please read. Let us read the prayer first and then share our reflections. We are a few of us only, so that's okay. Maybe we can have more intimate connection with the lines using this. So yeah, whoever feels ready. So I think Shweta would be listening mostly. So Chitraji, one maybe you can read and the other one I can go over. So if you would like to start with this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
February 13, 1914. In the silence of an intense concentration, I would unite my consciousness with thy absolute consciousness. I would identify myself with thee, O sovereign Lord of our being, divine master of love, so that thy law may become clear and perceptible to us, and we may live only by it and for it. How beautiful, grand, simple, and calm everything is in the hours when my thought takes its flight to thee and unites with thee. And from the day it becomes possible for us to keep this supreme clear sightedness constantly, with what an airy and yet sure step we shall walk through life above all obstacles and unhesitatingly. For this I know through experience, all doubt, all hesitation ceases the very moment one is conscious of thy law. And if one perceives clearly the extreme relativity of all human action, one knows at the same time with exactitude and precision which action is the least relative in regard to one's body and one's own way of acting. And all obstacles really vanish as if by magic. All our efforts, O Lord, will henceforth be bent on an ever more constant realization of this marvelous state. May the peace of thy certitude awaken in every heart. Yes. I will share Monica first.
Yes, please,
Yeah,
Chitraji. Yeah.
yeah. Actually, yeah, when I read this prayer, this silence, that intense concentration, yeah, only through that we can unite with the divine consciousness, with that absolute consciousness. Yes, Mother brought it very beautifully, actually. So when only that intense concentration only will lead you to that unity, and so that thy law may become clear and perceptible to us. Yes, that is the very important thing. Yeah. And also to remain in that consciousness always, that also very important, I feel. Yeah, once maybe in some intense concentrating moment you will feel that unity, but after some time as human beings we are losing it, no? So that came to my picture, actually. And second para, how beautiful, grand, simple, and calm everything is in Davos. When my thought takes its flight to thee, yes, here again the thought, because I feel only we are struggling with the thoughts, actually, always. So thought also take its flight to thee and unites with thee. Yeah, that I feel this second line. Yeah, when my thoughts takes flights to thee and unite with thee. So then there came that supreme clear sightedness constantly, So that the first intense concentration and uniting with the consciousness, and the next the thought level also you are uniting with the divine consciousness. So your view becomes supreme clear-sightedness, and yeah, that all the obstacles also walk through life above all obstacles and unhesitatingly. Yes, these things will lead you that actually. It's a very beautiful prayer, really. And I know through experience, all doubt, all hesitation ceases the very moment one is conscious of the law. So again and again, Mother bringing this actually, you have to be conscious of yourself. That divine consciousness is very important. Again. So I gathered from this prayer these total points actually. First, she emphasized about that intense concentration, and then also the identification also she's telling, no, in further lines. Yeah, I wrote it here. One knows at the same time with exactitude and precision which action is the least active. Yeah, somewhere she is telling about the identification also. I don't know, now I can't find that. I know through experience all doubt, all hesitation ceases the very moment one is conscious of the law, and if one perceives clearly the extreme relativity of all human action. I think that line I missed. I'll find out. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah,
was
first,
it in the
no,
other one?
first para, no,
First
no.
para, the first
Yeah,
para.
yeah, first
Yeah,
para,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I
This-
would identify myself with it.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that point, yeah, really struck me, that line, because even in synthesis of yoga also, Sri Aurobindo emphasized this fact always: knowledge by identity. Knowledge by identity, even in Life Divine also is bringing actually. So they are giving much importance to that identification to the divine consciousness. Not only you are realizing that, but you have to identify with that actually. So that I felt very important. So I just gathered these points: intense concentration, identification with divine consciousness, and living with it and by it, and also unification in thought level also, and total effort towards that realization of consciousness. Last, she's bringing, no, all our efforts, O Lord, will henceforth be bent on an even more constant realization of this marvelous state. Yeah, these things, yeah, I got from this prayer actually. Very important and profound prayer, really. And
Yeah.
also, yeah, and also some of Savitri's lines also it reminded me.
Yes.
In page number 20, a prayer, a master act, a king idea can link man's strength to a transcendent force. Then miracle is made the common rule. Yeah, when I read this line again, she's telling, no, it is magical. Yeah, all obstacles really vanish as if by magic when you identify with that. Here the
Yes.
same,
Yes.
yeah, I felt the same here when I read
Beautiful.
these lines also.
Beautiful.
Can link man's strength to a transcendent force.
Mm.
Then miracle is made the common rule. Yes, prayer is always. In one of the session, Geetanjali told, I think I shared the once actually. Prayer is the Bhakti Yoga, and master act is the Karma Yoga, and king idea is that wisdom actually. Mother is bringing all these things in this prayer, no? Actually, prayer. It's very beautiful. Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Very deep, but actually,
Yes.
because I feel personally for me, yeah, maybe in the moment of very rarely that intensity of concentration I will get, I can feel that divine consciousness, but to keep it throughout the day itself is very difficult actually.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, that's the feeling came to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Only
Beautiful.
maybe on the second prayer, mother insisted, no, mother prayed for the whole lot of human beings, no?
Mm.
So then I realized, yeah, mother is doing the yoga for us. We have to open ourselves to her force.
Yeah.
That is the solace I can say. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's with almost every prayer of the mother,
Mm.
that we get like a little sutra, for all our life, like a little
Yeah.
mantra for all our life.
Mm.
And each prayer is so rich and intense and fulfilling in itself, like as if you don't need anything else in a, just that prayer can be your practice. Yeah.
And also after these sessions only, these are going inside like anything, Monica, really, because
Beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Chitraji. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing beautiful reflections. So I think Shweta would be mostly listening. So I'll share my, just add on a few things from my side, and then we'll go to the
Yeah, this one I need
next one.
some clarity, Monica.
Which one?
This, yeah, I will read. No, previous prayer only.
Yeah,
Previous
yeah,
prayer.
yeah.
The last para.
Mhm.
And if one perceives clearly the extreme relativity of all human action, one knows at the same time with exactitude and precision which action is the least relative in regard to one's body and one's way of acting. I couldn't understand that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah, we'll talk about that maybe.
Yeah.
Great. So I think these points that you brought forward, I'll just first focus on them because, as you said, they are very, very relevant, very important points. And as if the crux of the spiritual practice, that is the crux of it, what you were sharing and bringing out. Unite my consciousness with thy absolute consciousness. So the absolute consciousness is 24/7 with us, 24/7. But what we are busy doing is we are building castles in the air to block that grace, the flow of grace. That's what we call the egoistic consciousness. So mother says that I don't go away, you push me away, you go away. That's what we are busy doing. So imagine that consciousness, the absolute divine consciousness or mother's grace or presence is something like space. There is no moment when space is not. But what am I busy doing? I am busy building brick walls. And in that, I don't even realize the presence of space. I'm so busy building the brick walls. My thoughts, my feelings, the solidity that we give to our thoughts and feelings. And in that, I miss completely the presence of space. While it is because of the presence of space that I'm able to, first of all, build the brick wall. Even where does a thought arise? A thought arises in the space of mind. Where does a feeling arise? A feeling arises in the space of mind and then goes away and then arises again and then goes away. But I completely miss the presence of the space. I totally focus on the content of thinking, the content of sense perception, the content of feeling. So the absolute consciousness is forever there, 24/7. Masters have said again and again. Kabir, in many, many couplets, remarks that Ram Naam ki loot hai, loot sake to loot. So he's saying that the Ram Naam, the name of the Lord, is forever present. And it's present in abundance. So the grace is present in abundance. But why can't I feel it? Because our senses are limited. Our senses are limited, and also our senses are mostly focused on the surface only, not beyond what that lies beyond the surface, but usually just attending to appearances. And there we get lost in the drama. So this unity with the absolute consciousness, again and again, knowing ourselves as the knowing of the thought, knowing ourselves as the knowing of a feeling, rather than getting lost in a feeling, getting lost in a thought or a story. So this is how we identify, one of the ways in which one can put it, identifying, unifying one's consciousness with absolute consciousness. It's easier said than done. We all know how sticky our thoughts are, how sticky our feelings are, and how strongly they stick to us again and again. So that's why it's a lifelong, and even beyond lifetimes, this practice extends, because we have to just keep at it. We have to keep ourselves, detaching ourselves again and again from thoughts and feelings and sense perceptions which stick to our consciousness. So that's the first thing. And then the second, I would identify myself with thee. Usually, I am identified with the content of consciousness. What is the content of the consciousness? Thought, feeling, stories in my head, my past, my future, my self-images, what I think of others, my opinions, my demands, my expectations. This is the content of consciousness. Usually, I know myself as that content. And that's where we get lost. So I have to now identify not with the content of consciousness, but to consciously know myself as consciousness. To know myself as the awareness in which everything arises. Thought arises, feeling arises, just like we talk about this metaphor called blue sky, so to know ourselves as the blue sky, as this open, vast blue sky of consciousness or awareness, in which the clouds and the birds and all the things, storms and tsunamis, they can come and go. They can come and go. So not to identify myself with the content. And slowly, when we go further in this practice, we realize that even the appearances in that space of blue sky is also blue sky. That's where the duality vanishes. When we say all is Brahman, right now, what are we saying? We are making still a duality. We are saying consciousness is Brahman, and we are doing neti. We are saying, I am not the thought, I am not the feeling, I am not the sense perceptions, I am not the content of consciousness. This is the first step. So neti is the first step. It's not the last step. Usually I'm one with the thought, I'm one with the feeling. So the first step is to step back, as Mother says. So stepping back, and I know myself as consciousness. And when I have stabilized myself in this practice, then slowly I realize that even the content of consciousness is consciousness itself. All is Brahman. Everything is made of that substance. The essence of all of the manifestation is consciousness itself. There is nothing apart from consciousness. So that's where we dissolve the dualities, and all becomes one in that non-dual knowing. So that's how we slowly, gradually build upon this practice that we do. And it's very important to build. Yes, it's important to read also, because reading also kind of compels us to do the practice. Reading and listening to good words compels us to do the practice. But practice means also the sitting, meditating practice in our solitudes, to realize how finicky the mind is, to realize how restless the mind is. 2 minutes I can stay with breath, not even 2 minutes, count the number of conscious breaths you can stay with. And then the mind comes up again, the thoughts creep up again in the space, and I'm lost in the thoughts. And then I have to bring the puppy back home again. I have to focus on my breath again, So I'm aware of the breath, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then poops, the mind goes back again, wandering in thoughts and feelings. So in our silent practice, we realize the status of our being. Kitne pani mein hai, in the sense that how deep is the water that we are in. So it's very, very important for us to just be okay in silent practice also, to sit with our mind, to master the mind slowly, to supervise the mind. What is the mind doing? Where is it jumping? We have no idea what's happening. So to become aware, to give attention to that inner space that we call thought, feelings, sense perceptions, and slowly we can have a little bit of mastery, if not a complete mastery, a little bit of control and mastery comes in the practice. So slowly, as we build up with this practice, that so that the divine, thy law may become clear and perceptible. How will I know what is the divine will? How will I know? Because many a times we have this confusion. I am saying, let thy will be done and not mine, but I don't know what thy will is. So how to know what's divine will? I can only know the divine will when I identify myself as awareness. When I have no obsessive, compulsive desires of my own, I'm stepping back from the desiring soul or the desiring self. Only then I can perceive what is the divine will. And that's what we call connecting with our intuitive mind. So when we stay as awareness, then intuitions come. Then we become a receptacle for intuitions. Otherwise, we are so full of opinions and ideas in our head, our past and future, and worries and anxieties, and my family, my children, my story, so full of that. So once we become a little empty, only then we can receive grace through intuitive insights. So that's the first one, beautiful pointers again for almost a lifetime and more than a lifetime. And then she shares how beautiful, grand, simple, and calm everything is in the hours when my thought takes a flight to thee and unites with thee. So when I unite myself with awareness, when I know myself knowingly as awareness, the thought crashes back into its source, which is awareness. So imagine a wave rising up.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Thought crashes back. Yeah, very beautiful. Yes.
Yeah. So imagine, just imagine, visualize that there is an ocean in front of you and there is a wave rising up. And that wave is anything solid in our head, feeling, thoughts, stories in my head, what I think of myself. The moment it traces back itself into the ocean, dissolves, merges back into the ocean, there is the source. So awareness, just plain simple awareness, knowing that I am, this is the source of everything in manifestation. All the thoughts, feelings, sense perception are arising out of this awareness and then crashing back into this awareness. So when she says that everything is calm, when in the hours, as Chitraji was sharing in the beginning, that there are moments when we are one with the source, knowingly, consciously. In those hours, when my thought takes its flight to thee, to the source, and unites with thee, then things become so simple, beautiful, grand, simple, calm. Everything becomes so simple. All our expectation, demands just crash back into the presence of awareness. There is nothing that I am demanding from life right now. Everything seems full and complete. It's not that the work is not to be done. There is much to be done, and we all have our own unique roles and responsibilities. But the excessive tension and worries and anxieties, they vanish. That, yeah, things will be done. Even now, I'm okay. Things are okay. So to consciously know ourselves as that fullness, as that completion, and to also parallelly know that there is work to be done. My thoughts are not totally one with the divine. My feelings are not totally one with the divine. There is still ill will, there is still anger, there is still hatred. So there is work to be done. But we also get a taste of something which is beautiful and can happen while we are being mortally alive. So this gives us inspiration to walk the path, when we taste it, when we glimpse it. Yeah, and this is what we call as clear-sightedness. In Buddhism, we call it as the pristine clarity of the mind. The true nature of the mind is this pristine clarity. Usually, the ordinary minds that we live in, they are full of garbage. But that's not the true nature of the mind. The true nature of the mind, just like we were discussing, the true nature of the wave is the ocean. So the true nature of the mind is the source, which is the awareness. This is clarity. This is where we gain clarity in the mind. When there are no confusing elements which are blinding like haze, like cloudy day, everything is hazy, not able to see much. So that when we have haze in our head, too many thoughts, too many feelings are crowding, then we are blinded. But when we know ourselves as awareness, then everything is pristine clear. That's the supreme clear sightedness. And this has to be, there is a lot of effort which goes into this, although it is our essential nature. And yet we have this ignorant nature also parallelly with us. So there is work to be done. There is long, arduous journey of lifetimes, not that easy. But we have to embark upon it because this is our birthright. To know ourselves and realize ourselves is our birthright. It's not secluded or just exclusively for few people who do the sadhana. Not at all. No person, no human being can have lasting happiness without realization of his true nature. So it's our birthright. We all must embark sooner or later. Yeah. And then we shall walk through life above all obstacles unhesitatingly. So now when I know myself as the blue sky, I can walk over the clouds. Now clouds are not blinding my sight. Yes, clouds are there. Yes, old ripples of anger and frustration may be there. But now I am not fueling them. I am not identifying with them. So yesterday or maybe day before, I was sharing with maybe in some of the sessions that something happened and I was feeling a little hazy and confused, and I could sense that something is not right. And although that non-clarity or confusion was there, parallelly, what I also was able to do was that I did not fuel it. I parallelly focused on myself knowingly as this presence of awareness. And very soon, in few hours, how that dark cloud that came up, dissolved and diffused, I didn't even get to know. As if it was a completely different scenario, in the evening after a few hours. So things will arise because these are old patterns, old habits, and they die hard. But I have the power not to fuel that, and parallelly to fuel my presence of awareness. To have that identity knowingly, ask myself, who am I? I am this presence of awareness in which all the ripples can come and go. And slowly we see that things change, take a good turn or a clear-sighted turn. So then we are not swept away by the waves, rather we can ride the waves. There is a surfer who has a surfboard and he's riding the waves. So when this happens, when parallelly we are able to maintain this presence of awareness, identifying with that, then we are able to ride the waves. It's not that the waves have ended, but I am not now swept away by them. That's how we slowly become master of our movements. Yeah. So for this, I know through experience, all doubt, all hesitation ceases the very moment one is conscious of thy law. So when I'm identified knowingly as awareness, then doubt and hesitation disappears. The dark clouds don't have much importance when I know myself as the blue sky, right? This ceases the very moment when one is conscious of thy law. And if one perceives clearly the extreme relativity of all human action. Now, Albert Einstein gave this beautiful theory of relativity. That nothing is absolutely good or bad. Everything is relative to each other. So a plane is a plane and a bird is a bird in relation to a grain of sand, a tree, a human being, right? But when we go forward and march towards absolute truth, towards non-duality, then we see that there is oneness, that everything is consciousness. The stuff, the essential substance of everything is consciousness or awareness, right? But that is a later stage, because that realization may take lifetimes. And before that, when I'm living in relativity, I have to know the relative importance of things. I think I shared this story with you where this little fellow who goes to a Gurukul to have this wisdom learning from his guru, he learns that all is Brahman. And he goes back to the village and he shares with every friend that, I learned that all is divine, all is Brahman. So we can have fun. So he's walking on the main road, and there is a elephant coming. And on the elephant also there is a person sitting who is steering the elephant. Now, when this elephant comes in front of him, a few feet away, he reminds himself that all is divine. So this elephant is also divine. So I don't need to be afraid. So he's walking into the elephant thinking that all is divine. So the person sitting on the elephant shares that he really requests that please get off from the path, otherwise you can be hit by the elephant. But he shares, no, everything is divine. I don't have to be worried about it. And the elephant, puts him, takes him up in the trunk and throws him away, and he has a broken back. And then he goes back to the guru and he says that you said that everything is divine, and look what happened. So the guru shares that, yes, I shared that everything is divine. And the person sitting on the elephant was also divine. So you could have, heard of him also, what he was sharing with you, that, get off the path. So everything is relative. Everything has relative importance. We cannot be blinded saying that everything is divine and stop to use our reason, the rational clarity of mind. So there we have to use our brains, because the brains are also provided by the divine. So not to be dumb and blinded by this, it can be taken in any which way. So there is a relativity. Yes, everything is appearing in consciousness. The elephant is also appearing in consciousness. It's not a very solid reality in itself. The stuff of the elephant is also consciousness. But in relative terms, when I am living as an ignorant person, I have to give importance to the presence of elephant in front of him and to save myself. So that is the necessity of relativity. But once we have gone beyond relativity, which is a long journey, very extreme masters are only able to do that, then we are above the duality, above the relativity. So there, even when I am in front of the elephant, nothing is going to happen to me. But we are not there. We are not there. We are on the path. And on the path, we are still in ignorance. So to recognize our ignorance and to behave in a little rational manner. So one perceives clearly the extreme relativity of all human action. Everything has its own little importance. One knows at the same time with exactitude and precision which action is the least relative in regard to one's body and one's way of acting. So when one slowly gets more and more this experience of knowing oneself, stabilizing oneself as awareness, one realizes the importance of the actions that one is doing. Every action is important, relatively speaking. So one gets intuitive insights about what is the relative action to be taken right now. In absolute, all is Brahm, nothing is to be done. But in relativity, in ignorance, things are to be done. That's why Sri Aurobindo in Savitri shares that this world or manifestation is a dream fact. He neither shares that it is a fact, and neither does he share that it is a dream completely. Right? So yes, the whole of existence is held as God's dream, as if we are all characters in God's dream. But there is a factuality, relative factuality or reality to that dream also. So we cannot say that tomorrow I anyway have to die, so let me have lots of alcohol today. That would be stupidity and a waste of human life. So that's what I perceive here from the relative thing. Would that make any sense, Chitraji?
Yeah, Monica. Now I understood. Yes, yes, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. And then she further continues and shares, and all obstacles really vanish as if by magic. So usually what are we complaining for? Let us talk about this. We are complaining either for people in our life. We are complaining of either what happened to me in the past. We are either worried of something in the future to me, or we are worried about our relatives or job or, finances or securities. So the center of focus is me. The center of all our worries and anxieties and cause of turbulence is me, because everything is related to me. And the more I identify with the presence of awareness rather than identifying with the thoughts, feelings, and sense perceptions, this me begins to dissolve. That's what we call the surrender of the ego. So ego is crashing back into the source itself. It's dissolving, it's diffusing. Now I do not give much importance to my thought, feelings, and sensations. Yes, they are there, but I do not cling to them. They are not a part of sense of myself. So a dissolution is there, a surreality is there. I don't take my opinions that seriously. I don't take my thoughts that seriously. So here, the obstacles begin to vanish, because the only obstacle is the egoistic state of consciousness, which begins to lose its grip from our minds. And there, all our efforts, oh Lord, will henceforth be bent on an ever more constant realization of this marvelous state. So intellectually, we know, many of us, we have an understanding. Also, not only intellectually, even we have practical glimpses of that. But the only effort that is needed of us is to make it more constant, to make it a living reality of our life, rather than the living reality being the egoistic state of consciousness. And that is what we would call the kingdom of the psychic being. That's where the psychic being will, the new race will come into picture. When each person on this earth, each living being on this earth is living through that conscious presence in himself. So much of beauty, but that beauty, holding that beauty, requires a lot of strength. So slowly we have to grow in strength. As we identify ourselves with consciousness, we also grow in strength. Only then we can hold the joy, hold the beauty. Otherwise we shatter if too much of joy is there. Yeah. May the peace of thy certitude that yes, this will happen, and not only for me, for each one of us, no matter how ignorant I may feel that my family members or others are, for each one of us, this is going to happen. So that's the certitude. May the peace of thy certitude awaken in every heart. So that's what I would like to share. Anything that anyone wants to add on?
Very beautifully explained, Monica. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Shweta. Yes. So let's then jump to the next prayer, and anyone who feels ready to read the prayer, and then feel free to share your reflections on it. Feb 14, 1914. So Till, would you like to read and share your reflections? Because Shweta may not be speaking much today.
Okay, well, I'm ready to read. Reflect,
Yeah.
I don't know. I have not had much space, but reading I will do. Yeah.
Please. Yeah.
Is my voice clear enough?
It's clear. Yes, it's clear. Yes.
February 14, 1914. Peace, peace upon all the earth. May all escape from the ordinary consciousness and be delivered from the attachment for material things. May they awake to the knowledge of thy divine presence, unite themselves with thy supreme consciousness, and taste the plenitude of peace that springs from it. Lord, thou art the sovereign master of our being. Thy law is our law. With all our strength, we aspire to identify our consciousness with thy eternal consciousness, that we may accomplish thy sublime work in each thing and at every moment. Lord, deliver us from all care for contingencies. Deliver us from the ordinary outlook on things. Grant that we may henceforth see only with thy eyes and act only by thy will. Transform us into living torches of thy divine love. With reverence, with devotion, in a joyful consecration of my whole being, I give myself, O Lord, to the fulfillment of thy law. Peace, peace upon all the earth.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. Yeah, so anyone who wants to share any lines that resonated or any reflections that you want to share on this prayer?
Yeah, it was very, very soothing, so soothing. Every line was like, very, very, like it was as though, it's a balm to your soul. I just felt every line. And the lines which, stood out for me is grant that we may henceforth see only with thy eyes and act only by thy will. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, that's a beautiful aspiration. Yeah. I think that's where we talk about, this receptivity of the being, because we start with being very, very resistive in nature, as if I know what is to be done. And slowly, 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 as we get frequent blows in life and the life situations kind of mellow us down, and slowly there opens a receptivity in our being that, okay, I don't know. And let me open myself to the grace or something higher than me, which knows, and let me be guided by that knowing. And it's only in degrees that we slowly through our experiences kind of become more porous, so that we can have this aspiration. Yeah, Chitraji, you want to share your reflections?
Oh, yeah. Also, this prayer is translated by Sri Aurobindo, I think, actually, because this mark is there, no ostrich
Yeah,
mark.
the star mark. Yes.
Yeah, star mark, yeah. So I feel when I read this prayer, no, actually, Mother is praying for whole universe. Actually, she is definitely for us. She is doing because Sri Aurobindo every time used to insist upon that. Since Mother is doing the yoga, you just open yourself to Mother's force. As you said, that receptivity. Yeah, that is because this integral yoga definitely we can't do. As you told that life, it will take lifetime or after many lives actually. So we have to open ourselves to Mother's force, since she is doing the yoga for us as a divine mother. This prayer really, really, really show that actually, because the previous prayer, it is connected with the previous prayer, because she insisted upon that divine presence, realization of divine presence. Here she is praying for the humanity to make us open towards the divine presence. So I felt she is doing the yoga for us. We have to open her fully, actually. That receptivity should be there. Yeah, this is my reflection. Thank you, Mantra.
Yeah, absolutely. I also can relate this with the, for example, in Buddhism, there is this way of the Bodhisattva where, you walk on the path of self-realization, not only for yourself, but for all the sentient beings that are there. Because once we notice our own suffering, we also know that others are also suffering.
Yeah.
So to walk on this path, Mother again and again shares for everyone, not only
Everyone,
for,
yes.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So I can relate this with the
Mm.
way of the Bodhisattva also. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Because one man's perfection will reflect upon the world, no, actually, yeah.
Yeah.
Even it is for everyone, yes.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And there also, whenever they, usually they have satsangs, in Buddhist traditions, they always dedicate the virtue of satsangs to everyone, all
Yeah.
the infinite number of beings.
Yeah.
So not to keep the virtue of satsang just only to ourselves, 3-4
Yeah.
people who may be attending, but to distribute the virtue that we may have gathered
Yeah.
throughout the existence. So that's really very powerful also. Yeah.
And that's also very helpful because living alone on a kind of isle sometimes, as it seems,
Yeah.
Sometimes you get a tendency to forget that you're not alone. You understand what I mean? So,
Yes.
so it's very very profound to become more aware of not being alone. It sounds so silly. I hear myself saying it, but it's really an issue in my life in this period.
Yeah, absolutely with you. Yes. That we are not alone. Absolutely. Yeah. And no matter, we may actually be living in solitude, really. And just a second, there's something wrong with my throat. Yeah. So we may be living in solitude and, not much in connection with everyone around the globe or even people around us. And even then, be silently doing our alone practice to feel this connection with everyone, that whatever practice I may have done today, maybe it's meditation practice, maybe I've read a few chapters of Life Divine, or whatever little I may be doing today, may it be distributed to the whole of, manifestation. I think that really creates a very unique connection. We feel this oneness, whether we are physically maybe one with people or not. But yeah, it's very, very powerful. Yeah. So good to remind ourselves. So let's go over it maybe once more, and then we can add on any reflections if they are there. Peace upon all the earth. So when I notice my own suffering, and I also see parallelly a capacity of peace in me, then I also connect myself with pain or the suffering of others. And I know that just as I suffer in the egoistic consciousness, I suffer in ignorance, all the people are also suffering. Everybody, we are all alike in that sense. So to invoke that peace and clarity for everyone, peace upon all the earth, may all escape from the ordinary consciousness. So ordinary consciousness is the big trouble. The egoistic, limited mind, and giving lots of importance to what I'm thinking, giving lots of seriousness to my opinions, my ideas, my views about life, that really sticks. It hurts. May all escape from the ordinary consciousness and be delivered from the attachment. Here comes the, key word. There comes the keyword. So the material things are not a problem. The problem is attachment and clinging to the material things. And thought is also material. Thought is subtle material. Thought is a subtle material. So when I cling to my thoughts and feelings, I am suffering most of the times. Even if I may be in pleasure right now, clinging to my thoughts and feelings, very soon that attachment will lead to suffering. Yeah. So may all be escape from the ordinary consciousness, which is the sticky consciousness, very, very desiring, demanding consciousness, and be delivered from the attachment for material things. So mother gives us the cause of our problem. What Buddha also said, attachment is the cause of suffering. Material world is not the cause of suffering. The attachment to material world is the cause of suffering. May they awake to the knowledge of thy divine presence. So it's not that the divine presence is not there, but I don't know that it's there. That's why we call it ignoring. So imagine that there is a kid sitting in the room and you're looking for that kid. Outside, you're looking, outside of the room, you're looking, okay, where is the kid? Where is the kid? You're not finding it. But when in the room, you ignore its presence. It's not that the kid is absent, but I ignore its presence, ignorance. So ignorance of my true nature of awareness, my Buddha nature, my enlightened nature. That is what is the cause of suffering. Why do I suffer? Because I become too attached to what arises in consciousness. Thoughts, ideas, feelings, people, situations, everything, anything that we cling to. So may they awake. Mother is giving also the cause and then she gives the solution. May they awake to the knowledge of thy divine presence. That yes, I am aware. I am all the time aware. That's how I know a thought. That's how I know a feeling. That's how I know that I'm walking. So to focus on the knowing rather than the content, mostly where I'm lost. And taste the plenitude of peace that springs from it. So as we were discussing, Chitraji shared that it's connected to the previous prayer also. So when I know myself in even if glimpses I have, in those moments, I am not suffering. In those moments, I am love. In those moments, I am joy. In those moments, I am infinite, expansive, and complete, and peaceful. So that's the qualities, if we can say, whenever we talk about the divine, we attribute some qualities, although the divine is quality less, because the moment I give a quality to something, I limit it, right? So yet we know that there are a few attributes, if not qualities, whatever we can say, that love is a parallel name, a synonymous name for our true nature, consciousness. Infinity is a parallel name for our true nature, consciousness. Vastness, expansiveness, oneness, that's a parallel name when we know ourselves as consciousness. So there we can taste the plenitude that springs from this knowing. Lord, thou art the sovereign master of our being. Thy law is our law. And with all our strength, we aspire to identify. So this aspiration is beautiful. That's why, aspiration is so important in integral yoga. If not, if I'm very comfortable, settled in my limited self, there is no aspiration. No, I cannot really identify myself with the divine, even if I may have the divine nature. So what's the point of having a treasure when I'm sitting on the treasure, begging like a beggar throughout my life? Almost like that. So aspiration is very important. Yearning, a seeking that yes, I have tasted it once and I can taste it again and make it a constant in my life. So with all our strength, we aspire to identify our consciousness with thy eternal consciousness. So the ego crashes back to its source. That's how the identification happens. And that's why the ego cannot know the divine. Because when that knowing is happening, the ego is absent. That's why we say that there is no person who can get enlightened. Because when the enlightenment is there, the person is not there. So we cannot really say that there is a person who is, that's why masters usually avoid using this term for themselves, because they don't want to create a further delusion. So an ego never becomes spiritually enlightened. A wave, when it crashes back into the ocean, becomes the ocean. It was always the ocean, but now it realizes itself as the ocean. It cannot have a separate identity then. That's what we mean here. We aspire with to identify our consciousness with thy eternal consciousness, this surrender of the ego, so that we may accomplish thy sublime work. This is the work. While we have the body, to become egoless and to shine the divine radiance from within. That is our task. That we may accomplish thy sublime work in each thing and every moment. So we will see that there is so much to be done, because there are many, many, many moments in our life where I'm still acting out of egoistic consciousness. So there is a work to be done. That's the sublime work. Lord, deliver us from all care for contingencies, what can happen in future, what may happen, all the worries, anxieties we have. Deliver us from all care for contingencies. Deliver us from the ordinary outlook on things. May we hold our opinions very, very lightly. May we hold our ideas and thoughts about people and myself very lightly, not to, hold it very lightly as we hold water in our palm. Have you ever held water in your palms? If you hold it too tightly, the water slips out. And if you hold it very gently, then the water stays. That's how I have to hold things, people, situations, opinions, thoughts, and feelings. Not to cling to them, not to grasp my fist too tight. Because then I have nothing, I'm empty-handed. Yeah. So this is the ordinary outlook, to cling, to grasp. So may we be delivered from that clinging and ordinary separative attitude. Grant that we may henceforth see only with thy eyes and act only by thy will. So too, while I'm acting, while I'm interacting with the world, how would I act in this situation, knowingly knowing myself as the presence of awareness? Would I still be so desirous? Would I still hanker after approval and praise from people? No, absolutely not. So let me change my ways. So there, henceforth see with only thy eyes and act only by thy will. Transform us into living torches of thy divine love. And we need on this planet and beyond also, we need many, many, many more living torches. Only a few are very good, but all of us have to become a living torch for each other. Transform us into living torches of thy divine love. With reverence, with devotion, in a joyful consecration of my whole being. So there is a giving happening, that I realize the importance of this work. I realize the importance of my own realization and the realization of others. And for that, I give myself, I offer myself. So the whole being, I give myself, O Lord, to the fulfillment of thy law, so that the divine may shine in each being. And don't exclude, especially those members of your family which are maybe not in alignment with you. We have to include them in the process, that through them also the divine may shine. Peace, peace upon all the earth. So when we shift the egoistic state by invoking peace for everyone, then we also shift our own egoistic state and we also have peace inside. So may there be peace inside, and henceforth may there be peace outside, if there is any outside at all. Yeah. So anything anyone wants to add on? Okay, so I'm assuming there is no further addition or reflection. And let us continue on this path. Let us build up on our practice again and again. We falter so many times during the day. And yeah, I think we deserve this peace and clarity and happiness, not only for our own selves, but people who are connected with us, people who are not even connected with us. All of us deserve this clarity of mind and peace and progress and joy. Yeah. So, yeah. Thank you, everyone, for joining and sharing and reflecting together.
Thank you, Monica.
Thank you.
Yeah,
much.
beautiful. Yeah,
Bye-bye. Thank you.
So much, Monica. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank
Bye.
you. Yeah.